This was difficult. No, I mean, my favorite papers, I would say, Jim March, Exploration, Exploitation, because, I mean, it's a very simple and powerful idea that keeps obsessing me. It keeps obsessing me. So I would say Exploration, Exploitation by Jim March, Hannan and Freeman 77, because this is the theory that I drew the most of my inspiration. Sewell 1992, because this is a theme that cuts across my research. And the work of Damon Phillips is an author that I admire, because he manages to combine theoretical depth and empirical rigor. These are the ones that I have in mind right now. There are two answers to this question. The first answer is that recombination is relentless in categories and across categories. So the exception is the product that eventually spans a new category, because there is a huge effort of legitimation for the new category, for being a new category and for staying as a category among the other categories for a reasonable amount of time. So apart from these special cases of products that span a different categories, a new category, the other acts of recombination remain silent. And these were the ones that I was very much interested in. Because in some way they can really disrupt a category, because especially if these acts of recombination go in all possible directions, so there is a lot of confusion going on in the eyes of third parties looking at the categories and using the categories to make sense of the word, of their word. And on the other hand, there is some equilibrium that can be created if these combinations get replicated a certain amount of time. So you're asking me whether time is an effect that in some way time makes the category absorb these boundary spanning objects or products or not. So in my take, not always, because exactly, if there is some repetition going on, there is a kind of equilibrium that keeps the category stable, but at the same time open to some connections with other categories. And what makes the difference is the success of the product in some way. Then whether this gives birth to another category or not, there are some conditions. Then the question whether the sea remains rough, I would say so. Seas are always rough, but the key is how to keep them calmer and how to keep them easy to navigate, or at least reasonable to navigate, because if the sea is too rough, then we cannot make sense of our word through the categories. So if the category starts being too confusing, we cannot make use of them. So the secret is how categories can remain reasonably stable while being also open to innovation. So this for me was the cool stuff, because to me recombination is going on everywhere, in all industries, in some ways. What is interesting is that even in very creative settings like music or other creative industries, you witness replication, you witness imitation. And this is what makes also very creative categories, creative genres stable. And so this tension between novelty and habit, this tension between replication and the drive for innovation is, in my opinion, typical of many industries, not only creative industries, but also those where you can have some experience goods or where the need for novelty is felt in the eyes is felt by consumers, by customers. So I would say creative industries in this way are becoming interesting as a good setting where you can see these dynamics at place, and they have been always at place. Mm-hmm. First of all, try to find the data that you enjoy, that you have some connection with. At least this is my piece of advice. Mm-hmm. And this relates to the data. I would say you need to be very determined and very persistent, and because for sure talent matters in this career, but endurance is what matters more. Mm-hmm. What I find extremely useful is to listen to the Kraftwerk when I code the data. So when I have to do something extremely routine, the Kraftwerk are particularly effective, and I would say electronic music that is not too hard. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, if I am writing, I cannot listen to anything but silence. Okay. Yeah.